The separate question, and this is again crystallized by all of the criticism, all of the discussion, the hand-wringing, everything that happened after the ruling was issued last Monday. Will there be teams that shy away from Brendan Sorsby? You got 32 teams. Now, 31 can say no. All it takes is one to say yes. I don't think it's ludicrous to think there are some teams, and specifically their owners. When you're talking about significant draft capital, the owner is going to be involved. When you're talking about getting a quarterback who could be groomed to become your future starter, the owner is going to be involved. And if the owner isn't comfortable with what is known or knowable between now and the time the supplemental draft comes, if you're not comfortable, you're not going to greenlight it. Quarterback touches the ball every single play. We don't need to have on our team the risk of a quarterback who has a gambling addiction that he's trying to recover from having a relapse. We don't want to spend our time policing him. Hard enough to run a football team without having to constantly monitor one of the players who has a gambling addiction in a sport that is fueled by gambling, where the owners are allowed to own up to 5% of a company that runs a sports book, where the NFL has traditionally, not yet, but they eventually will, had lucrative sponsorships with sports books, where you see the ads everywhere. We're not comfortable taking that chance. That's going to be the balance. And there will be some owners who are conservative, small c conservative, who are careful, and they just don't want to. They don't want to run that risk. You got to weigh the talent against the risk. And that becomes part of this analysis as well. How good do we think he'll be based upon his time primarily at Cincinnati? Will he be potentially a consistent, viable starting quarterback? Could he become a Pro Bowler? Could he become a franchise quarterback? And, there are teams out there who will aggressively pursue any potential franchise quarterback because they are so hard to find. You accept the risk. You assume the burden of making sure that Brendan Sorsby stays on the straight and narrow as it relates to gambling. You take all of that because there's a chance you're going to get a guy who's going to be your quarterback for 10 or 15 years. So it's a hell of a reward. It's a hell of a risk, but it's a hell of a reward. I remember back in 2013 when Josh Freeman fell out of favor with Greg Schiano and eventually he was cut. Vikings signed him like that. And somebody from the team explained to me at the time, look, everybody's looking for a franchise quarterback. You've got three types of teams. One, team that has one. Two, team that doesn't. Three, team that has a guy on the roster that maybe becomes a franchise quarterback. We don't know yet. If you get a guy who can be put into category 3 and developed into category 1, that's a steal. That's what everyone's looking for. So there will be teams that become comfortable enough to take the chance. I think there should be teams that look at this and say, man, it's worth, and they'll determine ahead of time what they're willing to do. It's worth a 4. It's worth a 3. It's worth a 2. Hard to believe anybody using next year's first-round draft pick on Brendan Sorsby. But you know what? If somebody at the bottom of the priority order decides they just love this guy, everything that they're able to glean over the course of the next 5-6 weeks, nothing stops them from saying, we'll use our first-round pick. But you're talking about a compressed time frame when the coaches and the general managers are typically off. So much for our downtime. Pro Day is scheduled for July 10, and there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of people to talk to, a lot of experts to consult with. You want to talk to the kid. I was on with Dan Patrick earlier today. He said, what's one question that a team would want to ask Brendan Sorsby? And, there isn't one question. It's, what do we have here? What kind of a prospect is he? What do we think he can develop into in the NFL? And how recovered is he from his gambling addiction? There's been mention of an anxiety disorder, panic attacks. Does it make sense for him to be thrust into the NFL? Benefit of no offseason program. Just boom, there you are at training camp. Go, sink or swim, and don't gamble. And we're going to apply all of these various devices to your phone and whatnot. We're going to monitor you. Like, it's a challenging situation enough when you had the benefit of the offseason program and you've gotten yourself adjusted and acclimated, and then you show up for training camp as a rookie. It's going to be very hard for Brendan Sorsby, and you're going to have to be confident if you draft him that he's going to thrive in that environment. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and there may not be enough time to come to the right conclusion that both physically and mentally he is good to go. And you can have some owners who say, it's a great idea, and maybe he turns out to be a great quarterback, but we're not comfortable giving up next year's fourth, third, second, first, whatever to try to get him. Then there's the question, and I'll choose my words carefully here. Who cares? Will the league try to tell the teams to shy away from it? Will he be blackballed? Will the league decide in lieu of, and I'm just throwing this out as a possibility, I'm not saying they're going to do it, in lieu of blocking him from the supplemental draft, in lieu of suspending him, we're just going to discourage anyone from drafting him. I don't think the league would do that. It would be collusion. It would be blatant. There's a way to kind of get your message across that you're not thrilled with this guy waltzing into the NFL, given the admitted violation of gambling laws and the violation of the NCAA policies, but it's just something to keep an eye on. And I think he should get drafted in one of the 7 rounds. Does he get drafted lower at the nudging of 345 Park Avenue? I don't know, but we've seen this movie enough times to know that if the NFL wants a specific outcome, it has ways to get from point A to point B. So that's where it stands. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of information that needs to be gathered. There's a lot of boxes that need to be checked. And it's time to talk to Brendan Sorsby. You want full transparency. You want no hesitation. Dan made the point of medical information and privacy of that. Hey, when you come to the NFL, we hear it all the time. It's a job interview. You have to open up your life to anything. Your body gets poked and prodded. You get asked a bunch of questions. They do a bunch of research on you. For a prospect like Sorsby, who's walking into the NFL with an admitted gambling addiction he's recovering from, it raises the stakes for everyone. So we'll be watching it. We'll be following it. And step 1, will they let him in? Step 2, would they suspend him? Step 3, will he be drafted? I need to go back to the prior case and see if he was suspended after he was drafted. I vaguely recall, that the suspension came after, but I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong today. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.